I think the impeachment inquiry is absurd. The American people want us to do something that will make their lives better, not go off on these chases and witch hunts. The bottom line is, as we've said, you can only accomplish keeping the government open in a bipartisan way.
House Democrats will defend President Biden today. We will defend President Biden tomorrow. We will defend President Biden next week. We will defend President Biden next month. We will defend President Biden next year. We will defend President Biden until the very end.
All right, guys. So in a continuation of the bombshell announcement from the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, that Biden will undergo an impeachment inquiry, that the GOP is going to launch a formal investigation into the Biden crime family to uncover the bombshell evidence that Joe Biden was taking bribes and selling out the American people overseas in exchange for political favors that the mainstream liberal media claims does not exist. It does not exist, okay? Democrats are screaming that there's no evidence, right? And they're going to be screaming that there's no evidence for the next 6 or 7 months, probably.
And so this is the constant and persistent dysfunction, chaos, and just complete disorganization on the part of the Republicans who cannot run the government. And instead, what they are doing is focusing on doing the bidding of Donald Trump, distracting from Donald Trump, and trying to launch a completely baseless, meritless impeachment investigation. It is one thing to actually go forward with any misconduct, but we're not talking about impeaching Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is being dealt with by the Department of Justice. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, and I don't care how much they say otherwise. I looked at it. There is no direct evidence that President Biden was involved in any way, shape, or form in Hunter Biden's business dealings, and they would be going forward with an impeachment inquiry based on lies.
Meanwhile,
it's going to be funny to listen to Democrats say there's no evidence for the next 6 months, because here's just 3 pieces of evidence right here. That's off the top of my head. Okay, so Putin's billionaire buddy wires the Biden family $3.5 billion, and then they sit down for dinner with Joe Biden, and then Biden leaves her off the sanctions list twice. Right there, you could open an impeachment inquiry. Or how about when Joe Biden flies his son to China, he comes back with a bucket of cash, and then gets on the, hey, guys, you better pay up the rest or my dad's going to get revenge on you. And what do you know? Joe Biden starts writing the communist Chinese guy's daughter's recommendations to get into Brown. And then they grease the regulatory process so the Chinese can buy an American car company. Oh, yeah, and then Hunter gets that diamond for about $75,000 that he lost. Because if Malia Obama got a diamond and then President Obama went soft on the country that gave it to him, I'm sure that would not be a big deal at all. And then who else do we have? We have Biden flies his son down to Mexico City. Hunter meets with the president of Mexico and Carlos Slim, comes back with money, and then complains, guys, I've gotten all of your clients into the White House to meet with my dad, and you haven't paid me a dime. Where's the cash? They can't answer those 3 situations. So I can't wait till they have to answer about the burner phones, the 20 shell companies, or Joe Biden on a voicemail saying, son, I read the Times piece about your shady deals in China. You're in the clear. Now, how would he even know if he was in the clear if he didn't know what his son did? And how do you not know what your son did if you call your son every day for the last 20 years? Hey, son, how'd you get the Porsche Panorama? Hey, son, where did you get all the money to take me to St. Croix 8 times in a row?
No evidence, they say, right? No evidence, they say. We will see. I personally think that there's a bombshell at the end of this. I think they do have the evidence. I don't think that Republicans would be opening up an impeachment inquiry if they did not think they could get the bombshell evidence needed to prove that Joe Biden did, in fact, take bribes. Okay, he was getting paid in exchange for making foreign policy decisions that mainly protected his son Hunter, who was not selling a product at all except influence, which is clearly obvious. That's what they were doing. Okay, but according to mainstream liberal media, you're not supposed to ask any questions about how in the hell did the Biden crime family accumulate millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars selling nothing, right? You're not supposed to ask questions about it, okay? In fact, it's not just the Democrats claiming that there's no evidence. You also have the mainstream liberal media reporters also claiming there's no evidence. And one of these unlucky reporters decided to ask some GOP congressmen about how there's no evidence. And let's just say that these GOP congressmen weren't having it. Take a look.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you?
Oh, I don't know.
Bullied Speaker McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political
revenge.
revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the president, the vice president at the time, on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blunt, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
You're not,
We're here reporting on it today.
I'm not sure how you know what the American people think, but here's what they might wonder. Actually, if you're a federal prosecutor, you would be asking yourself, how can there not have been an indictment for a FARA violation against Hunter Biden? How can there possibly, my understanding and discussions with staff have confirmed my impulse that this would be very much the basis of a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act investigation, given the circumstances that we know. The question is, it's funny, after we come out of the events that John Durham, for example, testified to our committees about how investigations proceeded through our investigative agencies without proper predication. It's not that you have to prove the case. It's not that, you understand, to this point, there's not been a single subpoena to a Hunter Biden bank account or a Joe Biden bank account or any other Biden family member's bank account, because until an impeachment inquiry commences, that's not a jurisdictional possibility. Well, it would be stretching jurisdiction to do that. But there's ample predication at this point in time based on that very unusual set of circumstances, which is for no apparent payment for expertise or services rendered. Biden family members writ large received over $20 million.
That we know of.
It is very simple for someone just to insist there's an absence of evidence. But if you can look in the face of that and contend that, that's, anyone has a right to their opinion. What they can't do is change the facts.
And I invite you to go to the website clyde.house.gov/Biden crime family, and you will see all the evidence from the Oversight Committee. You will see all the evidence. And if you're willing to read it, I think you'll be convinced.
Thank you all.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that, okay? You have GOP senators basically going off on this reporter who is willfully ignorant, in my opinion, right, in regards to the evidence, okay? And it's almost like these people don't seem to understand the concept that the impeachment inquiry allows the GOP to gather more evidence. It gives them more power to get the evidence that I'm sure they know is there. This is why they're doing it, right? This is why they're doing it. But again, that doesn't stop mainstream liberal media outlets like CNN, for example, from coping with the fact that the GOP has launched an impeachment inquiry into their Lord and Savior, Joe Biden. But again, apparently under Trump, it was totally fine. And now there's concern that impeachment may be being abused, right? Now that it's being used against Democrat.
But then there's going to be the politics of how do you move through this in a way that doesn't necessarily blow up in your face, given, as you all have said, we have not seen any evidence, hard evidence, directly connecting wrongdoing on the part of then Vice President Biden, now President Biden, and Hunter Biden's business dealings or the ongoing Hunter Biden investigation. Now, I want to add one thing, though. What Kevin McCarthy does have in this moment on his side is public opinion. I mean, we just released a poll last week, and we saw that despite that lack of evidence having been presented, a majority of Americans believe something afoot here. I mean, 55% in our poll said they think President Biden has acted inappropriately during the course of this investigation while he's been president. North of 6 in 10 Americans think that either Biden did something illegally or acted immorally or in bad faith in some way, did something wrong here when it comes to the business dealings of Hunter Biden when Joe Biden was vice president. So there is a perception issue that the White House is going to have to battle, and that is the perception issue that the House Republicans and Kevin McCarthy right now are leaning into. Both sides are going to need the evidence or lack thereof to make their final case to the American people as this goes forward. I would just note one thing. Manu made a very smart comparison looking back to 2019 when Nancy Pelosi and House Democrats launched that initial Trump impeachment inquiry. One thing that is so fascinating to me about the difference in the politics internally in the House at the moment, Nancy Pelosi did that when some of her moderate frontline members sort of flipped and decided they had been so reluctant about moving ahead with the impeachment, especially those with like national security credentials. A lot of those freshman members, they got on board with that. And that's when Nancy Pelosi went forward. Here, it is the reliable, solid, hardcore conservatives pushing McCarthy here, and those frontline members who determine Kevin McCarthy's majority have clearly not yet been fully on board with this. And so it's a difference in the internal politics in the way each of these speakers handled it. And then I just think, guys, we have to step back and look. You know, did our founders envision impeachment, high crimes and misdemeanor, as now a sort of quadrennial political tool for no matter which party is in power in the White House or in the House, that this is just becoming a way of life? I've been covering American politics for north of 20 years now. This will now be the fourth presidential impeachment process, at least, getting kicked off in that time. And it had been a long time prior to that. Nixon obviously didn't move forward to a formal impeachment charge, but this is now the way of American political life. And I am not sure that that is a healthy thing for our system.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. This CNN lackey is now concerned, right? He's now concerned that impeachment is being weaponized too much, okay? This is not what the founders envisioned. They didn't envision a country where political parties would use impeachment as a political tool for trying to remove the current party in power. Again, where was all this concern back when Democrats were weaponizing impeachment against Trump for silly reasons? There was no concern. These same people were cheering it on. It was totally legit. I mean, if you listen to the guy talk, right? Nancy Pelosi, when she was launching her impeachment inquiry into Donald Trump, it was, she had got all the moderate members of her party on board. Kevin McCarthy doesn't even have the moderate members of his party on board. Well, Kevin McCarthy has some moderates. He has a lot of moderates. There are some that are objecting. But again, this is not actual impeachment. It's an inquiry. Again, see how afraid these people are. These people, right? They say there's no evidence, right? There's no evidence. But they're afraid of the impeachment inquiry process, which is simply just an investigation that allows Republicans to dig deeper. If there's no evidence, why are you afraid of an investigation, right? If Joe Biden is truly innocent, okay, and there's no evidence, which they're lying, there is evidence, and they know there's evidence. The evidence definitely points to the fact that there is bombshell, indisputable evidence. Everything right now is circumstantial, but the circumstantial evidence points to the fact that there is going to be bombshell, solid proof, cold, hard evidence, okay? If you don't believe that's there, then what are you afraid of? Who cares if they do an impeachment inquiry? Because they're going to find nothing. If they ultimately find nothing, then they're going to look bad, right? They're going to look like an embarrassment. It's going to help Joe Biden. But again, the mainstream liberal media knows that there is something there, that these allegations are totally legit, And this is a cope, right? The cope is to try to trick people and to believe, oh, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. Don't pay attention, right? Don't pay attention. When there's definitely evidence, right? But again, if the mainstream liberal media and the Democrats are upset about what's currently happening, they have nobody else to blame but themselves because they asked for this. They asked for this when they decided to go after Trump. They set the precedents that, hey, it's totally fine to impeach the president in power, okay, over petty political reasons. It's totally fine to score points. So now you have a new era of politics where this is more commonplace. And Democrats open the door for it. So they don't have anybody else to blame but themselves. That's the hilarious part about this. They're boohoo whining and crying about something they started. Had they not did this to Trump, this honestly wouldn't be happening to Biden. Wouldn't be happening to Biden. But because it happened to Trump, now you open the door for this to happen to Biden. Actually, I take that back. Maybe, just maybe, regardless of what Democrats did to Trump, maybe Biden actually does deserve to be impeached anyways, because let's be honest, if it wasn't for his dumbass son, this wouldn't be happening, right? If his son did not leave that laptop in Delaware with all this information that implicates his family in high crimes, if he would not have done that, then yeah, none of this would be happening, right? So again, regardless of what Democrats did to Trump, I think that this impeachment stands on its own just based off the merits. But if Democrats didn't do what they did to Trump, it would be a lot harder to justify it, right? It would be a lot harder to justify it considering the current stage and where it's at. But because Democrats set this new precedent, they made it a lot easier for the GOP to do this. But again, this is deserved, right? The Biden administration deserved this because he definitely is guilty, in my opinion, of the accusations that he's been accused of. It's just a matter of time before the cold, hard evidence is uncovered. It's just a matter before the smoking gun, aka the bank statements showing that Biden receives the funds, is actually revealed. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.